I'm very happy to welcome everyone to a really special closing session of today's Holocaust in Literature seminar series. Dr. Mehak Burza, who convened and organized this entire session, is also one of the board of directors and head of Global Holocaust and Religious Studies, as well as the program director of the Holocaust Studies at the Global Center for Religious Research in Denver, United States. She's also a board member of Teach the Shoah, where she's involved with Holocaust storytelling and interfaith community. She's also been an alum of the ISGAP Oxford Summer Institute, and she's been a very close and helpful friend of ISGAP with her scholarship. She's really a leader in the field. And so it's my honor to introduce her and to have her speak with us today. So Mehak, you're welcome to begin.
Thank you, Daphne. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my dear colleagues and fellow participants. Foremost, before I begin, I extend my deepest gratitude to Professor Charles for giving me the opportunity to organize and convene this seminar series, as well as to the wonderful duo, Daphne and El Shaddai, who were so prompt in executing and handling the technical part to perfection each time. Thank you to all of you who have joined us on this intellectual journey. Your dedication to the pursuit of knowledge and your commitment to remembering the past serve as a beacon of hope in these dark and tumultuous times. Today, as we conclude the ISGAP Holocaust and Literature Seminar Series, I'm filled with a profound sense of reflection and gratitude. Over the course of this series, we have embarked on a scholarly odyssey through history, memory, literature, delving into the complexities of the Holocaust and its enduring impact on our collective consciousness. And I'll just begin my screen share. Throughout the past sessions, we have been privileged to hear from 10 remarkable speakers, offering unique perspectives and insights into this pivotal moment in human history. Each offering their unique perspectives and insights, our series started on the 20th of November with Professor Michael Berenbaum's lecture, who talked about the early works of Elie Wiesel. He also stressed on the importance of different forms in which the Holocaust can be made available. Considering the limited attention span of today's generation and the sad reality that students learn more from social media than textbooks. We then had speakers covering a range of trajectory from diaries, historical fiction, memoirs of child survivors, to the Holocaust memory in Mauritius, and vital considerations in Holocaust literature encompassing humility, empathy, curiosity, and integrity. So let's reflect on some of these themes together and consider the different approaches that can serve as entry wedges of teaching the Holocaust. 2 weeks ago, I was invited for a talk at a US university, where I emphasized on the need of creating awareness regarding the Holocaust. At the end of the talk, I was asked, why out of all the genocides, the lessons of only the Holocaust should be emphasized to teach? So let me quickly reflect upon this issue and the lessons that can be learned by teaching the Holocaust. The uniqueness of Holocaust is in itself a unique question. While opinions remain divided between the absolutists, trivialists, and relativists, Professor Yehuda Boer, emphasizing the uniqueness of the Holocaust, says that the uniqueness of the Holocaust does not lie in numbers. What makes it unique is the existence of two elements: the planned total annihilation of an ethnic group and the ideology that motivated the murder. And to reiterate Elie Wiesel, the scope and depth of atrocities, the machinery and universe of concentration camps is what makes the Holocaust unique. Thus, teaching about the Holocaust demonstrates the fragility of all societies, and of the institutions supposed to protect the security and the rights of all. It makes one aware about the susceptibility to scapegoating, the potential for extreme violence, and the abuse of power. It further demonstrates the dangers of prejudice, discrimination, and dehumanization, be it the anti-Semitism that fueled the Holocaust or the other forms of racism and intolerance. And lastly, it also deepens our reflection and broadens our understanding about the contemporary issues that affect societies around the world, such as mass violence, power of extremist ideologies, and propaganda. With fewer survivors available to share their first-hand experiences, juxtaposed with the recent escalation of anti-Semitic incidents since October 7, further underscores the relevance and importance of educating people about the Holocaust, so that the often repeated phrase of never again is imbued with genuine significance, and the dangerous manifestations of Holocaust distortions can be curbed. Now, creating awareness about the Holocaust becomes more complex in the Indian scenario, where there does not exist any proper channel through which Holocaust education can be taught. The indifference of Indian scenario can be attributed to four major reasons. First, the alienation effect, wherein the Holocaust is viewed as an event of a far-off land and as an alien event. The distant geographic locale is thus accompanied by a lack of empathy. Second, the overarching shadow of Indian partition. The Holocaust years were also the time when freedom revolts gained momentum, with violent upsurges in many states of India, accompanied by communal violence. It's usually these events that tend to overshadow the catastrophe of the Holocaust. And more so, the partition of India is sometimes referred to as the Indian Holocaust. Thus, we have books such as The Holocaust of Indian Partition, The Holocaust in the Raj, Raj meaning the British rule, and the Bengal's Hindu Holocaust, which is a recent release of 2021. Pictures entitled India's Secret Holocaust, The Forgotten Holocaust, and Original Holocaust further accompany this notion of equating Indian partition with the Holocaust, which I assume often comes under Holocaust theft and comparison, a manifestation of Holocaust distortion. Next, the Holocaust is mentioned as a passing reference in school textbooks and as an optional course in universities. The NCERT, National Council of Educational Research and Training, is an autonomous body that is responsible for designing the curriculum for grades 1 to 12 in all subjects. They are the standard textbooks prescribed throughout the Indian schools, and some of the states have their own state boards. The Class 9 Social Science textbook has an entire chapter of over 100 pages devoted to Nazism. But the word Holocaust is mentioned only thrice on page 72, which you can see, out of which only one reference is its description, and it's described as Nazi killing operations. The Holocaust has a diluted introduction, for instance. It is introduced as a genocidal war, and the definition of genocide is given as killing large sections of people. Hitler is presented surprisingly as a powerful leader, passionate about restoring the dignity of the German nation to compensate the losses of the First World War. And the text says, Hitler was a powerful speaker. His passion and words moved people. He promised to build a strong nation. Communists are described as Hitler's enemies, who were packed off to concentration camps, a place where people were isolated and detained without due process of law. Likewise, the only text of the Holocaust taught in the Delhi University Master's Syllabi under the optional course on Violence and Memory Studies is Primo Levi's text. Even the secondary readings evade references to any Holocaust text. Lastly, the indifference towards Holocaust education and awareness is fueled by this empowering image of Adolf Hitler. The name Hitler is used as a brand name for someone authoritative. The name Hitler is also used as a common trope in Bollywood movies and daily soaps to depict a commanding protagonist. However, the fascination for Hitler goes beyond this. And so, there is an ice cream brand, a cloth shop named after him. When the owner of this ice cream stall was interviewed, he said he had an uncle who was strict and authoritative, just like Hitler. Likewise, when the cloth shop owner was interviewed, he said that the name stuck to him owing to his grandfather's strict disposition. When further confronted with his choice, he said, "None of the other people are complaining, only a few Jewish families. I have not heard any sentiment of the majority community. If Hitler did something in Germany, should that be my concern?" Such is the captivating image of Hitler that in 2018, Mr. Nirmali Sivaprasad, an Indian film actor turned politician, attended the parliament dressed up as Hitler in order to show his difference of opinion with other members. When he was questioned about his choice, he proudly said, "What I'm doing will grab attention quickly and will make people think." There is also a pool parlor called Hitler's Den and a cafe named after him. The admiration for him is also depicted on car stickers with the labels of Schutzstaffel and images of Hitler. Not only this, there exists a website called Colorful that sells Hitler merchandise. And apart from t-shirts, jewelry boxes, keychains, and locks, the best-selling ones are the cover cases for almost all brands of cell phones. The Amazon India, Flipkart, and India Mart even have Hitler floor cleaners and Hitler germ fighter skincare available in 3 distinct flavors and scents. The sales of Mein Kampf have shown a steady rise in India. In 2011, it was the #1 best-selling book on Amazon India. Out of the 22 official languages of India, Mein Kampf has been translated into more than 14. The most popular one being in Hindi, spoken by more than 50% of the Indian population. In 2021 alone, 1,000 copies were sold. And if this is not enough, Hitler comic books have made their way in the bookshops, where they are placed with famous personalities of India, as well as the characters from sacred texts. Here are some recent examples of events that surfaced on social media. Again, a case of Holocaust distortion. Released in 2021, the movie Kashmir Files pivots around the living of Kashmiri Hindus from Kashmir. When an Israeli director called it vulgar, he was immediately attacked by saying that if this is vulgar, then the Holocaust was a biggest lie. A social media influencer, Ranveer, in one of his podcasts on World War II, is seen saying, "Hitler was evil, but so is everyone." And then the discussion casually meanders around other notions, that Churchill killed more Indians than Hitler killed the Jews. Next is Bawal, considered the first Bollywood movie to have a backdrop of the Holocaust. In one instance of the movie, the protagonist is seen saying, "There is a bit of Hitler inside all of us." Naturally, he's completely unaware of the legacy of the name. And then there are other instances as well, where even the Hindu epic Mahabharata is compared with Holocaust, with discussions centering around statistical data. Thus, against such a backdrop of ignorance and indifference, creating awareness regarding the Holocaust becomes pivotal and naturally complex. And this calls for an integrated approach of teaching the Holocaust. During the last years of my research, I found a few interesting examples which can form the relevant entry points for creating an awareness regarding the Holocaust in India. The first example is the case of Maharaja Digvijay Singh Ji Jadeja, the Maharaja of Gujarat, who in 1942 gave refuge to 1,000 Polish Jewish children. Popularly known as Indian Oscar Schindler, he not only gave them refuge, but also hired teachers for them, and as well as a Polish chef, as the children were not used to eating Indian spicy food. And to honor him, there is a square and a school named after him in Warsaw. Next example is of Princess Noor Inayat Khan, famously referred to as the Spy Princess, a descendant of Tipu Sultan, who later on became the most celebrated British spy and fought against the Nazis. Shrabani Basu, in her book Spy Princess, provides a realistic account of Noor's life. In my interview with her, she revealed about the tedious journey of obtaining information regarding Noor's life and told me how Noor, with her courage, tackled both causes of Indian independence and that of the British. Now, coming back to the seminar series, in fact, the idea of an interdisciplinary approach and consequently of organizing this series emanated from the ISGAP Oxford Summer Institute, where I was a scholar in residence last year. At the end of the workshop, we were asked to present a syllabus draft of a course we intended to teach, and as an educator of English literature, I realized that in order to teach about the Holocaust, it is necessary to teach about anti-Semitism and the Jews. And so I thought about a possibility of teaching the representation of Jews through literature, particularly the British English literature, because it forms a major portion of the Delhi University syllabi. So there are numerous examples of texts such as Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, and Christopher Marlowe's Jew of Malta that can be used as the relevant entry points to teach about anti-Semitism, even without having an independent curriculum of the same. And if any of you are interested in reading about the entire syllabus, please let me know and I'll be happy to provide it. During the question and answer sessions in this entire ISGAP Holocaust and Literature Seminar series, a common observation was that just teaching about the Holocaust education through the reiteration of facts might not be sufficient for creating awareness and fostering sympathy and empathy. Holocaust education has to be integrated in such a way that students recognize its importance and feel the need to learn about this phase of human history. It is, as Professor Michael Berenbaum pointed out, that we not only have to bring Auschwitz to people, but we also have to bring people to Auschwitz. And for this, it has to come out from the confines of history. Now, this does not mean that we are trivializing it or disregarding the existing body of scholarship available, but it means that we expose ourselves to new approaches and opinions. It is thus worthwhile to consider an interdisciplinary approach for teaching the Holocaust that include the following 10 things. Adding to the existing literary corpus of memoirs, diaries, and fiction are graphic narratives, such as Maus by Art Spiegelman, Alex Teplish's Aaron's Story, and Paul Regel Brooks, More Than Any Child Should Know, a Kindertransport Story of the Holocaust. Through the illustrations, readers are able to visualize the experiences of individuals, and by following their journeys of specific characters, readers can empathize their struggles on a personal level. Under this literary oeuvre, a certain domain that can be used to teach the Holocaust is poetry. Whereas in usual poetry, there is an effort to impart a greater depth to the meaning of words, Holocaust poetry involves a constant struggle to return meaning to the words. And the meanings of normal words, such as left, right, flames, cold, assume a new proportion in Holocaust poetry. Best examples of these are Martin Niemöller's First They Came, Paul Celan's Todd's Fuge, and Dan Page's Written in Pencil in the Sealed Railway Car. More recent ones include Pat Binder's online art project, Voices from Ravensbrück, started in 2000, and it's said that at least 1,200 poems were written in Ravensbrück. Ravensbrück is often called Hitler's hell for women. The thematic focus of these poems revolve around survival, arrival, roll call, daily life, longing, suffering, and sometimes hope. In some cases, they are not even complete poetry. They are just fragmented rhymes expressing sorrows of the camp, their dull existence, and a hope for liberation. We also have Bozina Zedunek's poetry book. She was a camp survivor of Auschwitz and Ravensbrück and died in 2015. She managed to carry somehow a notebook with manuscripts of camp poems through both the concentration camps. And her poetry book was reprinted last year by Auschwitz Museum. Another significant form in which the Holocaust is portrayed is the representation through concentrationary films and plays. Ever since the production of Reed's Night Train to Munich, that is considered to be the first film dealing with the inhumane conditions of the concentration camps, there has been a stream of films. Films are also being produced from the viewpoint of Holocaust deniers and perpetrators. The 2016 film Denial, directed by Mike Jackson, portrays the true story of a Holocaust historian, none other than Deborah Lipstadt. The Accountant of Auschwitz, produced by Ricky Gurwitz and Rick Bienstadt in 2018, deals with the persecution of Oskar Groening, a Nazi soldier famously called the bookkeeper of Auschwitz, who was sentenced to a 4-year imprisonment in 2015 at the age of 1994. And the winner, Zone of Interest, that claims to be the first of its kind, depicting the Holocaust without actually depicting it. And when I saw the movie, I was somehow reminded of what Emanuel Ringelblum said about the abnormal and the normal continuing parallelly, side by side. We have Holocaust documentaries, where we often find a juxtaposition of a survivor participation in the process of documentation and their interview, such as Kitty Hart Moxon's One Day in Auschwitz and Eva Moses Paul's Eva A7063. That was her tattoo number. Apart from films and documentaries, there also occurs the staging of Holocaust plays and operas that have an intense impact on the audience. Nellie Sachs' play Ellie was first staged in 1961 and then featured as an opera, Ellie Opera 7, in 1967. Likewise, The Diary of Anna Frank was first staged in 1955, and it continues to be staged by various theater companies. A recent one that I would like to mention is Whistle. My Mother Was Mengele's Secretary, released in 2019. It's written by Jakob Buchan and performed by my friend Hadar Galran. Another interesting mention is the musical Rutka. produced by my friend Amy Langer. Rutka's Notebook, a diary written by a teenage girl, Rutka Laskier, is a primary text in my PhD dissertation. The musical Rutka is all set to make a world premiere at Cincinnati Playhouse on October 17 this year. And according to the director, Wendy Goldberg, the purpose of the musical is to introduce new generations to these stories in a way that they feel entirely relevant and current. Talking about Holocaust theater, Jean Planka says that theater affects us emotionally or intellectually in a direct way that poetry and fiction cannot. However, I believe, like the other forms, Holocaust theater too requires a special thoughtfulness that neither belittles the dead nor embarrasses the living survivors. Art has a unique ability to evoke empathy and understanding in viewers. One could explore various paintings that depict different aspects of the Holocaust, such as Edgar Ainsworth's Belsen, April 1945, in which he sketches various aspects of the Bergen-Belsen camp, or Charlotte Salmon's Life or Theater, composed of 769 paintings. Most recent ones include artworks by my colleagues, Carolyn Sifklin and Daniela Mansour. Carolyn has created a Holocaust arts project, Fragments of Family, in 2016, which is included in the curriculum of various schools in order to develop critical thinking and visual literacy. Daniela is the creative art director at Tribute Art and the author of Art Therapy Journal, Holocaust Without Words. Through a chronological artwork, she narrates a wordless story of the Holocaust. Daniela says she offers a blended approach, as she not only pays tribute to the Holocaust victims and survivors through her art, but also believes in telling the story of the Holocaust through her art in order to teach the future generations. Next, we have Holocaust emotion cards, a recently designed educational tool, which is a collaborative effort of my colleagues, Katarzyna and Camilla. Each card typically features a specific emotion or a feeling, accompanied by relevant imagery or prompts related to the Holocaust. So the entire deck is composed of 64 cards, 32 being picture or emotion cards, and the rest of the 32, the actual emotions being depicted on them. The cards cover a wide range of emotions, allowing students to explore a complex array of feelings associated with the Holocaust. They can act as catalysts for reflection, dialogue, and learning. And during our interactions, they told me how these emotions depicted in the cards, they form a thread that connects students and participants with the history. Sculptures offer a visceral and evocative way to teach about the Holocaust. Maurice Blake, a world-famous sculptor, was interned in Bergen-Belsen as a child. In his 40s, he realized he needed help and saw a psychotherapist. And it was during these therapy sessions that he began making sculptures. Talking about his sculptures, he says, he does not consciously create them. They just emerge, and people find them aspirational. His sculptures are depicted in his book, The Art of Survival, and Morris was generous enough to lend me a copy of his book. Likewise, Maurice Kagan, a second-generation survivor, shares his father's artwork on social media. His father, Henry, was a wood carver, a skill that helped him survive the concentration camps, as he used to carve sculptures on the order of camp commanders. By examining these sculptures, students can explore themes such as loss, survival, and remembrance in a more tangible way. Teaching about the Holocaust through music and dance. offers another unique avenue to explore the human experience. Analyzing the lyrics, melodies, and themes can help students understand the experiences and perspectives of the victims. Several songs, such as the Dachau song, Stand Fast, By the Ghetto Gate, and Auschwitz, were written in the concentration camps, ghettos, and partisan units, and also some of them were written in the displaced persons camps. Music helped the inmates to retain their sanity and fostered solidarity amongst them. And according to Shirley Gilbert, it also served as a means of psychological survival. In March 2018, an Italian professor and a musicologist, Francesco Lotoro, recited the concentrationary musical compositions written by the prisoners in the concentration camps for the first time for the public. During my interview with him, he explained how his research is aimed at finding the lost compositions and manuscripts that were written on charcoals, that were written with charcoals on strips of paper or on the backside of the X-ray papers by the camp prisoners. And last year, I was invited by the Austrian Cultural Forum in New Delhi to moderate a musical evening called Ariella, where the musicians Sigrid and Hannah celebrated the Jewish compositions. Like music, dance can also be used to explore themes of resilience, community, and hope. Several prisoners used dancing as a means to survive the brutal camp conditions. A well-known example is of the dancing angel, Helena Weinrock, whose dancing skills saved her life as she posed as a Gentile when the Jewish families were rounded up. Once her identity was revealed, she was sent to Auschwitz, where again, her dance kept her alive. Helena is the subject of the film Fascination by Karen Goldfarb, and I'm fortunate enough to be in touch with Karen to discuss Helena's life. There are also dances inspired by the survivor testimony. Rachel Linsky, the dance artist, directs and choreographs Zacher, an initiative that honors the Holocaust survivors through dance. Rachel's aim is to combine movement and testimony to create a novel form of Holocaust education. Her latest production is Hidden, a dance film based on the story of Aaron Elster, a Jewish boy who from 1943 to 45 hid from the Nazi persecution in the attic of a Polish family. Incorporating storytelling into the Holocaust is incredibly impactful, as stories have the power to humanize history and foster a sense of empathy. Being a board member of Teach the Shoah, I'm a regular Holocaust storyteller, and I always feel, while fostering a sense of empathy, the storytelling technique gives a new lease of life to the survivor testimonies, where a different person other than the survivor can narrate their story. Serving as a means of oral commemoration, the storyteller becomes both the narrator and the performer. A discussion about the Holocaust through the lens of medicine provides a unique perspective on the ethical dilemmas and moral complexities faced by medical professionals. On one hand, where doctors like Joseph Mengele, Carol Brandt, and Edward Wirtz chose to go against the biomedical ethics, people like Gisela Pearl, Luce Eldesberger, and Stanislava upheld the Hippocratic Oath as healers and chose to provide medical care to their fellow prisoners, often at great personal risk, and with bare minimum tools, thus creating living miracles of life in death camps. Another entry wedge can be through culinary literature. By exploring the food of that time, one can understand the hardships that the people faced and honor their memories. As hunger was a constant companion in the concentration camps, stretching the scraps of food resulted in innovative recipes, such as heating the potato peels directly on fire and eating them with salt. Food recipes were also discussed as a pastime, and the nickname for the recipe discussion was cooking with the mouth. A compilation of such recipes can be found in the book In Memory's Kitchen that was compiled by Mina Pachter during her stay in Theresienstadt concentration camp. Another cookbook called Ravensbrück Cookbook was assembled by Edith Peer, a survivor in the Ravensbrück concentration camp, and is currently housed at the Sydney Jewish Museum, where it is displayed among the other museum artifacts. Talking, cooking, sharing recipes thus served as a means of psychological resistance among the women prisoners as they were spiritually nourishing, though not physically. And lastly, we have teaching the Holocaust through gaming platforms. It's another increasingly emerging tool. A recent addition in the world of gaming is Luke Bernard's The Light in the Darkness, released last year. When I asked him about his choice, he said that most video games that revolve around World War II put you in the shoes of the members of the army and barely mention the Holocaust. And he also said that rarely are there ever any Jewish protagonists. The Light in the Darkness is one of the first games that actually puts you in the shoes of the Jewish people during the period of history. Luke also told me how most players are in tears at the end. They spend an hour and a half with these characters, naturally growing attached to them. At the end of the game, when they do die in Auschwitz, Luke takes a different approach and decides to showcase what their lives could have been if the Holocaust would never have happened. And it's this time when the reality hits the players. So it's a game about war that is trying to make the world more kind. Following the overwhelming response, Luke also created a digital Holocaust museum in the gaming platform Fortnite. So, to conclude, I would say that when undertaken with care and forethought, an interdisciplinary approach to Holocaust might as well go a long way in creating awareness about the Holocaust. And here I conclude with a remark of Elie Wiesel, who famously said, "To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time." Since
Thank you.
all this while we have been a close-knit community, I would want a favor from you. I have created a Padlet link, which I would like to share in the chat. And please go ahead and put forward your comments or anything in addition that you would like to share, especially when it comes to Holocaust teaching.
Thank you so much, Mehak, for your wonderful lecture. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions. If anybody would like to personally ask Mehak a question, raise your virtual hand and I'll make sure to promote you. If not, I can pull in some questions. This was the perfect way to close the literature series. It really ties everything that we learned together. And so my first question is actually a personal question to you. That is, what was it that got you interested in the field of the Holocaust?
I come from a science background, from a family of doctors, and my passion was English literature. So it so happened that in my master's, I took up war literature as an optional course. And that got me interested into this domain of trauma studies and PTSD. And then because for me, trauma literature was a literature that blended both of these together, science on one hand and literature on the other hand. And that's how it opened the domain of PTSD and then Holocaust for me. And then there was no looking back.
I see.
Daphne, is the link there for everybody, the Padlet link? Or would you like to reshare?
It's just for the panelists. I'll reshare. I can also send this link to everyone. When the webinar is uploaded, I'll also send to everyone who registered and couldn't make it, as well as people who are here.
I would love to hear your thoughts, everybody.
So once again, if you'd like to have any comments or questions, just raise your virtual hand. I'll make sure to promote you, but everybody will be getting all of this after the webinar as well. And I'm sure you'll be open to emails if anybody has follow-ups personally.
Sure. It has been a wonderful series working with all of you, Daphne. And thank you so much for your support.
Same here. It was a pleasure. We still have a few minutes, so I'll ask a few more questions before we conclude. Second question that I have is that whether you're involved in any projects or teaching pedagogy relating to all the approaches that you mentioned.
Yes, actually, I am involved currently in a couple of projects. One is related to innovation in Holocaust studies that is linked to a course that I'm taking up with the Western Galilee College. And next are a couple of translations, which I feel is absolutely necessary to, if we want to have a mass reach here for the Indian audience. And then I'm also interested in doing some, compiling some audiobooks. And that would be both in English and Hindi for the Indian audience. So yes, I'm involved in a couple of projects that if I'm also involved with the interfaith community, because there is also a need for us to promote interfaith dialogism. And so
Absolutely.
I'm involved with all of that.
Speaking of interfaith communities, um, I saw everything that you shared about Hitler's Cafe and all of that, but there's, at least on my end, there's this understanding that India is a very welcoming place, multicultural. So I was just wondering, like when we talk of the Holocaust, is there anything being done to actually create awareness of what happened and the history in India?
That's a complex question, and not directly, I would say, but yes, indirectly, there are a few steps taken. For instance, the Delhi University, in collaboration with the Yad Vashem, they created a teachers training program. Because to have a good sound education of Holocaust studies, you need to have good teachers to teach it. And so they developed this training workshop, of which I was a part of. And that went, we had like over 500 participants, and all were professors. There was no student in that workshop. And that went on very successfully. So that's one thing. Secondly, I'm very pleased to see a work that was released in August 2021, which is Weber Purandare's book, Hitler and India. And it's the first of its kind that sort of debunks the notion of Hitler being friends with India. Because this entire cult and the mania of Hitler in India is because the Indians believe, some of the Indians believe that he extended his support wholeheartedly to the freedom struggle for India. And that is not the case. So Weber Purandare in 2021 was the first one to debunk this notion. So yes, those are the two things that makes me very happy. In fact, I was also the first one to be interviewed about the Bollywood movie Bawal. Although it's, I mean, most of the Holocaust scholars would term it as trivializing the Holocaust. I would say that it marks one positive step, or if one positive takeaway I could have from that entire movie is that it has inculcated a sense of curiosity regarding the Holocaust among the Indian audience. Of course, there are dialogues that are atrocious, but it has sparked that curiosity. So these are some of the steps, not very direct, but yet they will do a long way.
A ways better than a lot of places. So as long as we're getting there.
Yes.
We have two comments. First comment is from Etty Zilber, and she said, I was pleased to see the work of Harry Kagan in your presentation. I knew him and his work, and our family survived the same hell as he. So,
Wow.
Thank you, Etty. That's a wonderful connection. I'd say what a coincidence.
Yes.
And then our second comment is from Robin Hisme, and they say, "Thank you so much for your work in this presentation. I am the daughter of a Mengele twin and would love to collaborate on a project. I'd also love to see your English literature syllabus as my PhD is in medieval and early modern literature."
See, this seminar series is up to some wonderful connections. Yes, thank you so much. And yes, I would love to collaborate on a project because one of my primary texts is Eva Moses Kaur, her story, and she was also a twin survivor of the Holocaust. So, and of course, I'll be happy to share my syllabi with you. So I think you have my email ID, Daphne, and you can go ahead and share it in the group chat. And please feel
Okay.
free to email me regarding any queries or any comments or any collaborations.
I will put your email in the chat, and I can connect you and Robin
Sure.
after. So that is wonderful. And okay, let's see what else we have. I think my final question for you would be, is there anything being done to debunk this Hitler mania in India?
Yes. And as I said, the book that came out, because, there were a few, when I was invited for this talk in the US university, so the students were very curious about the letters that Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the Indian nation, that he wrote to Hitler. So they were all perplexed and confused. And they said, why did Gandhi wrote to Hitler? Why did he write to Hitler? And then I explained that out of humanitarian reasons, because he urged him to end the war. And then they asked about the fate of those letters. Unfortunately, the fate of those letters is unknown, and most probable guess would be that it did not even reach Hitler because it was intercepted by the British authorities ruling India at that time. And so this entire Hitler mania, the Hitler mania is because some of the nationalists believe that Hitler extended his support to the Indian freedom wholeheartedly. And this has been debunked by Vaibhav Purandare. He is a journalist and a historian. So, and for instance, in his book, he mentions, while addressing a political rally in Munich in 1936, Hitler said that Indians could not even walk, and it was the British who taught them how to walk. And his book uh, consequently uncovers the bitter truth that Hitler was actually abusive towards India and dismissive for their demand of freedom. So it's the very first examination of what India meant to a figure who, in a very perplexing paradox, quite remains a sensation in the country.
Thank you so much. This was enlightening. It was wonderful to have you here. If anybody has any final questions or comments, we'd love to have you now. Otherwise, this was a beautiful end to the series, Mehak. I hope we can do this again. It was really, really a privilege to hear from you and your knowledge, and it's just ISGAP was very honored, and thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you so much, Daphne. The pleasure is all mine. And ISGAP has been a wonderful catalyst to my research, I would say. Please convey my thanks to Professor Charles as well.
Will do. And to more collaborations in the future. Thank you everyone for being with
Sure.
us as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.